Welcome to the Process Podcast.
From new agent to broker owner.
My name is Travis McClure. This is my co-host, Preston Guyton. Welcome to the Process Podcast. This is Travis McClure. Got a great guest with me today, Scott Royal Smith from Royal Legal Solutions. Scott, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Travis. So yeah, I've been living out, in Utah for the last couple of years during COVID. But I built up Royal Legal Solutions as a one-stop shop for legal, tax, insurance, and estate planning, and as well as investing, all in under one roof in Austin, Texas, over the course of like 6 years. So I'm a real estate investor myself. I also invest diversified now in quite a few different kinds of assets now. That's what I do is just help people be able to scale their real estate.
So, Scott, you kind of specialize in helping entrepreneurs, real estate professionals, investors. How'd you get in that lane of specialization?
Well, it's because I was a real estate investor myself. I mean, I bought my first commercial property when I was in law school. It was a transmission auto repair shop, and I bought it for the back taxes, and then I flipped the building and the business to graduate from law school without any debt. And since then, that's where I caught the real estate bug. Is that even when I was suing insurance companies as a litigator after graduating law school, I was still buying real estate. So I was making more money doing real estate than I was practicing the law, and so then I just quit doing the law altogether. But as fate would have it, right? Having my own success in real estate, then everybody started asking me like, "Hey man, what are you doing for your taxes? What are you doing for your asset protection? What are you doing for your insurance? What are you doing for your estate planning? How are you doing your bookkeeping?" So I just started to teach a little bit to just my local people about, "Hey, here's what I did that really worked well for me," um, uh, and uh, and they wanted to hire me to do it. So it's kind of like I accidentally started this firm, right? And then just slowly, and then over time, like started to in-house all these different divisions, because I realized that it's actually, the more that I can control over what somebody's growth journey through wealth looks like, regardless of their background, the more cost effective it is, the easier it is for them to understand as another person, the easier it is for me to teach, to do that. And the big thing though that I find over and over and over again is the one thing that matters is, one, do you have an LLC to protect yourself? And two, can you protect yourself while building up a business line of credit, while also being able to save money on your taxes, and saving money on the taxes pays for everything, right? And so that's really the sweet spot that a lot of people should do for just if they haven't done anything yet. That's the number one thing to do if you haven't done anything at all and you just own all your assets in your personal name or just doing all your taxes in your name. Just that one move is huge.
So, besides the protection part, Scott, why else is an LLC important? Like you say, that one thing you could do to kind of protect yourself, I guess, from liability, right? Explain that a little bit, but then why else? Why else LLC?
Well, number one thing is you have liability protection if you operate through an LLC, right? So if you're a real estate agent, that's somebody that wants to sue based upon a deal that went bad. A lot of times your broker is going to have insurance policies to protect you. Those insurance policies never protect against intentional acts, right? So if they say that you lied to them about the condition of the property that you sold or something like that, right?
Mhm.
There's no insurance policy that protects you from that. So you need an LLC in place to protect you from those types of suits. But they're rare, and your broker probably will have insurance to protect you. So if you want to be 100%, you need an LLC. But that's not even the best reason to have an LLC if you're an agent. The best reason to have an LLC if you're an agent is, one, you get to channel all of your income through that LLC. So now it's all business income, and which is much more easy to save taxes on than W-2 income. W-2 income, you can almost do nothing. Business income, you should almost be paying no tax at all if you're doing these strategies right.
Right.
Number two is that you can then build a business line of credit through your LLC, which gives you more access to capital, right? Because now you'll have a business that shows cash flows. Those cash flows then you can go to your bank and say, "Hey, look, I want a cash flow based line of credit," and you can typically pick those up fairly easily to give you an extra $50,000 to $100,000 and as a line of credit against your business. And then you have your personal lines of credit or your personal credit that you can do as well too, so you get more access to capital. And lastly, that protection piece that I just said, you should have, but maybe it's not that important. Well, maybe it actually is really important because remember, if you're involved and implicated into a lawsuit, it can destroy your credit score, which is if you're also a real estate investor or you're in business, you know, that is your liquidity, your access to capital, your ability to be able to close on deals,
Right.
right? So there's a lot of good reasons to say, well, that extra kind of protection, in a way, it should pay for itself in the back taxes. It helps you get more money because of the business line of credit that helps you establish, and it makes sure that your existing access to capital through your personal credit score, you're going to have access to that.
Scott, you have a great YouTube channel. That's kind of how I found you. And you explain a lot of these topics really in depthly. You can almost even like you have so many videos that you can almost like search for any of these like subjects, which is really cool. But one of the ones that caught my attention, you talked about the solo 401k and that being something that a agent could set up through an LLC and the advantages of that. Talk about that really quickly. 'Cause that's something I personally learned from watching some of your videos. I thought was very cool.
Yeah. So the first things to do, right, that we talked about so far is, hey, set up an LLC, get paid through your LLC. So now it's business income. And now that it's business income, then we can do all kinds of cool stuff, right? So your auto should be deducted from it. You should be able to file money to your kids or to other your family members to be able to further reduce that taxable income. You can also write off like your home office much easier and to a much greater extent because now you have an active business in place. But you're also then able to select for that LLC to be taxed as an S corporation, which allows it to avoid self-employment tax. So now you're at like you reduce your tax liability by 15.3% just because you have that LLC and that LLC is taxed as an S corp. So those are all those are the moves that everybody should be doing if they're making above $50,000 a year. If you're making about $50,000 a year, that's the standard recommendation for your LLC and tax structuring. What you're referencing here, Travis, with a solo 401k is, well, what about if I want to avoid $58,000 to $61,000 a year on my taxable income? So let's say I'm making 200k this year, right? And I said, well, great. Well, I went through, I set up my LLC, I have it taxed as an S corporation. I'm avoiding self-employment tax because of that, right? So I've already saved a bunch of money on my taxes, but I still have a huge chunk of cash here that I want to protect. So what do? You set up a solo 401k. Solo 401k is a retirement account that you can self-direct. So what that means is you can take your commission checks, take up to $58,000 to $61,000 of those commission checks. You place that money through your company into your own retirement account. It's a retirement account that you set up, that you're able to set up, you're able to maintain, you're able to manage everything yourself. And then because it's inside of the retirement account now, you don't pay any tax on that $61,000. So if you're at a 30% tax rate right now, right, because you're a high income earner,
Right.
that means you automatically just saved $20,000 in taxes. But you have $60,000 in that account. So you just saved $20,000. Now you have $60,000 in your solo 401k. And inside of that solo 401k, you can buy and invest in just about anything you want to, from anything from like stocks in the stock market to actually buying pieces of real estate, or just about any other investments you want that aren't highly speculative, like art, for example.
That's outstanding. But it's like if I was telling you a little bit about myself and what we do here. Like I spend a lot of my time talking to agents, and agents are really good, especially agents I've come in contact with. They're really good at selling stuff. They're not always great like running the business, this type of stuff, like the mechanical, the system pieces of like what do I do with the money? How do I manage my income once it comes in, paying taxes, all this kind of stuff. So this is extremely valuable information. My
Well,
question,
Travis, just to piggyback on that before we get to the next question, is like the key piece here, and I maybe we can highlight this in the show notes, is that it's not what you make, it's what you keep,
right?
right? And a lot of us that are salespeople, we're sales minded and we're growth minded people. We're always thinking about I need to go make, right? But real wealth is actually in defense. So yeah, you're doing the really hard work. If you're making good money right now, you're doing all the hard work. What you're probably lacking right now is the right team to leverage into to help you keep all of it and protect it. Because why? Most people I find is because it's boring and they don't want to do it and it seems complicated,
Mhm.
right? That's really at the end of the day, it's like, I don't want to focus on that. I'd rather go make more sales and I'm just not going to worry about all this other stuff. It's all this nerd stuff that has to happen here in the background, right? And
Right.
I think that's where you should leverage with the team. Doesn't necessarily have to be the Royal Legal Solutions team, but get some teamwork in here. Pay some money out to other people because we're talking about huge dollar differences, right? Like we're talking about one move with with this S corporation that's over 15% of your taxable liability. Boom, that's now off the table. Second move, solo 401k. That's another 30% of that taxable income by not having to pay tax of it. Boom, you just saved all of that. And that's just what, if you're listening to this podcast, that's just what you've heard so far, right? Of like what's possible inside of how you can strategically manage your tax and your investments through other people. So you can just focus on the one thing, which is making deals happen. It's the one thing nobody else is going to do for you. No, ain't nobody else out there going to make deals for you. You got to be working with Travis to help you on your sales skills and your marketing skills to be able to make that happen, right? But it gets other people onto the team to help with the other pieces, because it's not what you make, it's what you keep. That's what matters.
Absolutely. And that kind of stuff. I mean, I was telling you before we started recording, it's like for us from the real estate side, that's not our lane, right? Like we're not tax experts, we're not legal experts. It's worth the fee and what you pay to get that return. And what you're talking about for an agent that makes 150 plus a year, that's a huge return on investment for whatever you paid for that information or that advice or that consulting. That's huge.
Yeah, remember we talked about too, is just to make sure everybody hears this, is that it's once you're over $50,000 a year that the S corporations and the other things start to come into play. So it's actually much lower dollar thresholds. And as you can imagine, that those processes are all streamlined, right? So they're super affordable and easy to do at this point, right? Because we've been doing it for like 7 years to like just turn these out for people, because our number one metric is how many people can we help to financial freedom, not how much necessarily profits are we making. It's all about like volume of people inside of our network, because we want like an expansive network with it. But anything over $50,000 a year, you should be looking to do these types of things. And you were saying, Travis, is this something that you see that's pretty common, that like that agents are like really curious about, but they're really slow on taking action because it's just like, it's outside of the wheelhouse?
Yeah, I would say most agents don't have an LLC. Maybe we'll get some comments on the post of this, but I think most agents aren't as knowledgeable in what's available to them in terms of structure that's going to help them. And that's why I think that's why I wanted to do this episode, because I get a lot of questions about it, especially from newer agents. And that was my next question to you. If I'm a brand new agent, this is my first week in the business, what kind of thoughts do I put around this now? Like I haven't done a stick of business yet. Should I start an LLC right now today, or do I wait?
Yeah, I mean, I'd wait, because the threshold is, are you making about $50,000 a year?
Sure.
That's when everything starts to kick off. And it's above that threshold that now making moves that we've seen over and over again after we've crunched through the numbers with tons of clients, and saying like, yeah, it's at that threshold that like the tax savings makes sense and will pay for all of the work. And that's what you really want, right? You want all this work paid for. The way do you pay for it? You pay for it out of the tax savings, right? That you otherwise have to pay for. But then what you get with that is like, even if you're cost neutral, what you've started to do is form a relationship with people. If you work with us, right, on my team, that are, we worked with over 2,000 clients in all 50 states over the last 9 years. So the systems and the processes that relate to how do you build wealth are very well understood. They're very well streamlined, especially at the earlier stages of wealth, like that 0 to 5 million. There's no guesswork of like, how do you do that? Right. It's already all figured out. And all you have to do is just make the right relationships. If you make a relationship with us, just like the education that you said that I was there on the YouTube channel, Travis, I have 2,000 hours of videos. I have 11 ebooks. I have so much education, and we give it all away for free once we can find out who everybody is. So like, once we can know who you are, you make contact with us, we're like, great, here's the education that you need to get educated on the next steps. Do those steps, grow your wealth. Great. Then you're going to be ready for the next steps. And then it's just systematically, you just build it like Lego blocks over time. And if you do this stuff right, you should be financially free inside of 10 years.
Let me ask you this, Scott. Outside of earning less than 50,000, and there's part-time agents in the business, right, where like this probably doesn't apply. Maybe they only do a couple deals per year. Are there advantages to me as an agent if I just want to stay like a 1099 independent contractor and not have an LLC? What advantages?
It's exactly the same. So as a 1099, what you're actually representing is that you're a sole proprietor, which is actually a type of business.
Right.
You're just an unincorporated business.
Right.
So, but the main things that you want to do, whether you're 1099 or you have your LLC in place, is your auto, your home office, and pushing money through your kids. right? Those are the number one easiest ways to be able to save money on taxes, even if you're below the 50,000 mark. But if you're above 50,000, you're a 1099 or you have an LLC in place, that's when you need to start thinking, cool, S corporation tax elections are going to make a lot of sense.
What about as an agent, once you hire, like you make a hire, like you hire an admin or you have other employees that work for you? Are there different types of LLCs you should have? Because there's different types of LLCs out there. Is there a specific LLC you should focus on once you hire an employee?
So the different types of LLCs that are out there can have, a huge differentiation and huge different impact on different kinds of businesses and how they operate. For everything that we're concerned about as like investors and small business owners, which is if you're an agent, you're essentially a small business owner, right? It comes with it, or at least you should be thinking that way, in my opinion.
Yep.
All of those should be LLCs. You should never actually try to form an S corporation, C corporation, or any other type of entity because the LLC provides you all the asset protection, which is the same as all the other entities provide you, but it gives you the ability to elect what your tax treatment's going to be. So when you set up the LLC now, for example, you can actually like wait and tell the CEO, well, how does this year play out? If this year plays out and I'm making under $50,000 this year, great. I'm just going to have it treated as a pass-through entity and report all the income on my personal return. If it's over $50,000, I'm going to treat it as I'm going to tell IRS, I want you to treat this as an S corporation. I'm going to save myself employment tax, and then I'm going to take it that way. If I'm making over $150,000 a year that I need to shelter, I might elect to have it taxed as a C corporation. The C corporation can give me other types of write-offs for like my education, travel expenses, some other pieces that allow you to do, as well as some guys I know, what they'll do is they'll establish a C corporation. They'll push all the money into the C corp at the appropriate level, a tranche of their money into the C corporation, and then they pay the corporate tax rate at the C corp level, which is usually lower than their personal tax rate. If it happens to be lower than personal tax rate, then they just use the C corporation as like a slush fund for expenses. So that way they can pay tax on it, but it's a lower tax, and then they just generate expenses out of that SMU too. So everything depends upon the income level of what to do with what types of entities. But for anything that this audience is doing, and anything that we work with, typically, it's almost always LLCs for the asset protection. And then we like to have the flexibility to do the type of tax selection that we want. And that way we can have the lowest cost, best protection, lowest headaches, ongoing type of entities.
Let me ask you this, Scott. I've asked you the question from a brand new agent perspective. Now I'm an agent. I've been in business 5 years. I've absolutely crushed it first 6-7 months of the year. I'm hearing this podcast and I'm like, holy smokes, I'm not doing any of that. What advice would you have for that agent the rest of the year to kind of set themselves up for success from a tax perspective?
Well, number one, tax always has to be done proactively, right? So you can't set this stuff up at the end of the year and have it work, right? So you need to get these entities set up as soon as possible, so that way you can start getting the advantageous tax treatment. So if you think you're going to have a big year, set up all the entities now. Don't wait for it. There's nothing you can do once all the time is gone, right? So you need to do this now from a tax perspective. The other part of your question was like, well, I'm crushing it, right? Well, usually when people are crushing it, they're actually accumulating wealth, right? So you say, oh, when you're really in backwards, what you're really saying is my net worth has gone up, right? Hopefully, right? Remember the game was it's not how much we make, it's how much we keep, right? So if you're blowing it all on like, fancy parties and whatever else you're going to go do, right? Then you don't have anything, you're not keeping anything, so you don't have anything necessary to protect. But let's say that you're a little bit more disciplined with your expenses and you're actually accumulating some wealth now. You got some cash, right? Maybe you got some stocks. Maybe you got like your primary home. Maybe you got one investment property. Well, that's the part where you need to start looking at asset protection, right? And you need a second LLC, an LLC that's completely separate from that tax vehicle that we talked about for your business. And this LLC should be anonymously owned, either formed in like Delaware, Texas, Nevada, or Wyoming, someplace where you can own the LLC anonymously. And then what you do is that you then move your assets into that LLC. And so it's like the way rich people do, right? Rich people don't own things, right? They have LLCs that own things. Right. That's the same thing that you want to be doing. As you want one company that's your tax vehicle, that's your face to the world. We call that an operating company. It doesn't own anything, but it does everything. You have a completely separate company that does nothing at all. It just holds stuff. And the reason we want to hold stuff separate from us is because if we're ever sued, our operating company is ever sued, we want there to be zero chance that it can actually get into our vault, which is our asset holding company.
That's great information, Scott. If somebody was listening to this and was like, man, this is lots of great information, and I'm sure people will have lots of questions because everybody's situation is really different. What's the best way they could reach someone like you or you to ask more questions?
Yeah, so we work with a team. We have 4 attorneys. We have a couple of professional advisors as well. On top of that, about 10 paralegals, a team of about 30. And we work nationwide for every type of person that's out there, whether you're a real estate agent, a real estate investor, or you invest in other assets. Our bread and butter is going to be in tax savings and real estate, right? And the best thing to do is to go to royallegalsolutions.com and then click on the scheduling that we have there. That's just right there on the homepage. So if you just go to royallegalsolutions.com, click on the scheduling that's right there on the homepage. Right after that, I would watch that video that we have there on the homepage as well too. That's the best collection of initial resources that packs everything into a 40-minute video. So it's super intense, super instructive, and it's going to give you all the best information that I have inside of 40 minutes. Now, after you're able to talk to your advisor, because you've scheduled that meeting, you're going to meet with an advisor. That advisor will then be able to learn about you, where you're at inside of your wealth building journey. If you're just there at the very, very beginning and you don't need to do anything because, hey, you're not making enough money to need to spend money to save money, right? Then we'll be able to do is to diagnose where you're at in your wealth building journey and what content we have of the 2,000 hours of videos, 11 ebooks, and other materials we have are going to be most important for you to read, right? So we can save you hundreds of hours of time by pairing you with the right resources, pairing you with an expert. So you're getting educated into taking the right actions. So you're clear and confident whatever actions to be. But it all starts with just scheduling that initial meeting. And to do that, you just go to royallegalsolutions.com and schedule it through the meeting links that are right there on the homepage.
Scott, I got one more question for you. And just because I'm super intrigued, I love kind of talking to you a little bit. You were telling me how you're talking to me about your business that you've set up and you've built over years. So this is more of an entrepreneurial question, not a tax question. What's the number one piece of advice you would give to a brand new entrepreneur starting any kind of business today?
Make sure your customer has money and learn about how deeply can you help them. What's the most I can possibly help this person? So if you can focus in on really making sure, one, that your person has money because you want some of their money for helping them, right? So make sure they got the money. And then the second thing you have to figure out is what the heck is causing them pain, right? And then you going to figure out the problems of like, how do you solve those pain points? Because if that one rich person or that one person that you want to work with has that problem, especially if you've had that problem before, you can't lose. If it's a problem that you are having and that you've had, and the person else that you're trying to help has also had that problem, if you solve that for yourself, it's the easiest way to do it. That's how I built Royal Legal Solutions, right? It was, I scaled my own real estate. I ran into all these problems about like, how do I save money on my taxes being an attorney? How do I hold all these assets? How do I do my estate planning? Oh man, the insurance is such a pain in the ass with all these things. And how do I keep my insurance rates down? And do I need property and casualty? Do I need life? Do I need business insurance? Like what the heck with all that, right? And because I had to solve those all for my own, then spinning up all these different divisions as part of the Royal network of Royal Legal Solutions, right, became pretty easy because I already had to solve it for myself. So as an entrepreneur, that's what I would do is take whatever problems that you really solve for yourself, find some other people that have money that have those problems, and then just do what you did for you, for them, and they'll think it's amazing. They'll love it.
Scott, I absolutely love that. That was a great answer to that question. Guys, thank you for listening to the Process Podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.